important here on our show and with our guests is having honesty. Toph, turn it over to you, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, Mr. the Supreme Emperor in the world as we know it, a.k.a. Jimmy, let's just address the awkward elephant in the room. What's your opinion on all these fan run-ins going on lately? Because as a fan, I remember, and I've talked about this with Tech personally, one of my favorite memories as a kid was watching Nitro, and I vividly remember Dean Malenko having a match with Psychosis, and some random fan just jumped in the ring, and the referee just put him in a chokehold and just choked him out. Bobby Heenan was on commentary just laughing hysterically. And I just remember, like, when wrestling was really hot in the 90s, I used to see fans running all the time, and security would just deal with them very, very swiftly. They wouldn't even get anywhere near the ring. But lately it just seems like security has been very lax. So it's easy for fans to come to their own conclusions because at the end of the day, we're just fans. But when we actually have the pleasure of talking to someone that actually worked there, we can kind of get the 411 on how things are going. So could you explain to us, like, how security worked when you were there, and what do you think is going on? Because obviously, they're not doing their job in these past few years.
Well, good question. There's 5 questions in one there. It's really a broad, there's a broad spectrum of questions there. First of all, you're absolutely 100% on the mark about WCW in the old days. A guy would get the shit kicked out of him. You cross the barrier, you get in the ring, it's an ass kicking. It's an ass whooping time, and that's the way it should be. Okay? You get on the field of play, whether it's a wrestling ring, a football field while Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or Randy Moss are out there. You get on the basketball court while Kobe's on there. That's unheard of. You get on the pitch during a rugby match and get naked or run across the field or run across the court at the U.S. Open. That's an open forum for you to get the shit kicked out of you. So my first question is, what happened to WWE, and why aren't these guys getting the shit kicked out of them? I mean, when Jericho went old school in Victoria, British Columbia, when he was in his car going out of the parking lot and he was all alone, and by the way, he shouldn't have been alone that night either, but he was in his car, he should have been, WWE security should have been watching him all the way to the street corner, make sure he got off the property. Okay, but they didn't, all right, so whatever. But Jericho got on his car and started slapping people. That's what Jericho should have done, because number one, he's a heel. Number two, that's the way it's done. And that's the way it's been done for years. And he supposedly had all this heat. I heard that Vince saw that and laughed at it. That's what I heard. I wasn't there. That was only about a year or two after I left. But when guys hit the ring, they got the shit kicked out of them. In WWE, when the guy hit the ring in Edmonton and pushed Eddie off the top of the ladder, Eddie came down. Eddie was going to kill this guy, and Eddie did, and then the guy got tied up and taken away. So why didn't Roman Reigns turn around and just clock that guy? Isn't Roman Reigns a heel? Or maybe he's a babyface. I don't know. But one of the heels should have just walked up to this guy and clocked him in the head, that big, strange-looking dude who hit the ring, about a week ago. So that's number one. Number two is WWE security is obviously not motivating the venue security. There's 10 guys around the ring. I did it for a long time. I know how many house guys are handpicked by the house security director for Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, and WWE security. They're handpicked to protect him. The guy at WWE security is only the people he's got surrounding him. It is said at the Toyota Center that the guy got out of the way, the guy in the corner, and let this guy get over. Well, guess what? The guy at the Toyota Center in Houston should have got admonished and punished for his bad behavior because he didn't protect the product, the client, WWE, that he was representing that night. So he did a crappy job. When you're WWE security, you have meetings all day with these guys saying, listen, if I don't tell you it's a part of the show, it's not a part of the show. WWE superstars hit the ring on a regular basis, and these guys are ready for it, and they know to get out of the way. But when some jerk just stands up and then you move out of the way so we can climb over the ring and get in the ring to potentially harm a WWE superstar that WWE has spent millions of dollars to promote, that's just ludicrous. So, number one, obviously somebody isn't motivating the venue talent to do their job properly. And number two, WWE security's been too slow. If somebody hit the ring during me and Jimmy Tillis's time, it was 10, 11, and 12 seconds before we got the guy. But that's a real quick period of time. And you know how I know? Because I go to Kevin Dunn's production truck afterwards and watch it. And we discuss how it could have been taken care of better, or Kevin Dunn and Vince would say, good job, man, good job. You got that guy out of the ring real fast. It didn't even hit TV. Now it's hitting TV. It's everywhere. It's crazy. So somebody is not doing their job, and if they are, quote, doing their job, they're doing a very poor job. Again, I'm not here to shit on WWE security, but me and Jimmy Tillis were trained as security guards, and we made up our own protocol. And as I've said before, and everybody's seen it a million times, nobody was going to interfere with our show at any time. And if they did, they were going to be dealt with swiftly and harshly.
Well, thank you for that. I'm glad that you could definitely clear that up. Now, what people ask, because we're in Baltimore. Well, Toph lives in Georgia. Where most of us were here in Baltimore. We was at the show. Of course, Raw was here a few weeks ago, and Roman Reigns came down. Not Roman Reigns, I'm sorry, Seth Rollins. We was there live, and as Seth Rollins comes down the ramp, a fan, I don't know where he came from, walked down the ramp with Seth, and Seth had this look like, who are you? And as, of course, the fan got to the front of the ring, that's when security came by and grabbed him. And the question is that I have, and a lot of people are asking, I'm getting texts now from fans, is what happens after you get the fan? Once y'all grab the fan and put them backstage, what are the consequences? Do you face jail time? Do you face a fine? What are the procedures after we don't see him anymore?
Well, that depends on the local police department. Our intention has been given already during the day, during our security meetings at each venue. Our intention is to grab the person, take them down, subdue them, keep them off camera at all costs, keep them off camera, hand them off to building security or police, depending on who's closest, and then they are either taken to a cell or a police area in that venue, and they are held, and then it's up to the police. Now, I still got to run security at ringside, so I can't go sign an official complaint against this guy, but the building can. But the building kind of, sort of, a lot of places don't want to be involved, and the police don't want to be involved. So you know what they do? They cut the guy loose. No matter how much I protest them leaving that guy loose, sometimes the police say, oh, he just ran in the venue. It's no big deal. And they'll come up with some local statute. No. That's not how it's done, man. Do not tell me that there is no local statute that says it's okay if some guy runs into the field of play, which is that what the ring is, the field of play, during a nationally televised event. Do not tell me that there's not some kind of thing that we can hold this guy on. Intent to hurt, intent to maim, intent to kill, some type of intent. But the building people and the police sometimes don't want to be involved, so it's on them. Now, if he does get subdued and arrested, chances are somewhere along the line WWE needs to get involved and has to address it, on their end, and possibly in the future WWE is going to have to show up in court. Possibly. Not 100% of the time, but very often. And guess what, man? If I got a Monday night, I got a Monday Night Raw in Cincinnati, I'm not going to go to Seattle to press charges against this guy. it's a few things. One is it's not practical. Two, it's not cost effective. Three, I got a job to do. It's not like we got 10 security guys. Usually we got 2 or 3. In our time, it was just me and Jimmy Tillis. Now I understand they have 5 or 6. Could you imagine that? Me and Jimmy Tillis were kicking ass and taking names and taking care of business, and now they supposedly got 4 or 5 or 6 people, and they can't even keep a guy out of the ring? Why? Because one's an ex-state trooper and one's a former bus driver who was a Marine, and they hired him because he's a tough guy. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean he's going to be good at some security. It doesn't work that way. And I'm not trying to shit on Dennis or Jimmy Kelly. I'm just saying something's wrong. Muriel, by the way, the tall, beautiful black woman, she just recently retired. So, Muriel, wherever you are, if you're listening, I commend you for some really great work after me and Jimmy Tillis left. I don't know who you are. I never met you. I heard you're a very tough, very stern, but very likable lady. And I know many WWE superstars, including Dave Bautista, really love you. And I want to just commend her on a great career at WWE. But she just retired last weekend, and I think Dolph Ziggler gave her a very nice send away. Dave Bautista, as most people remember, gave me my send away when he Rikishi'd my face at an event in San Jose, California. So that was my send away when I retired or left or got cut or got fired or whatever the hell that stupid story was about me. And Muriel's gone, and God bless her, and I wish her nothing but the best in her future endeavors.
Very, very classy from, what was the name toasted? The Supreme Emperor.
Woo!
Thank you.
The Supreme Emperor in the world as we know it. It's too bad. I think if you went back, you could probably use that and refer to yourself as the Supreme Emperor of the WWE Universe as we know it, since they love to use that term so much.
You know, it's funny. Somebody put up a a Wikipedia page for me a long time ago, some WWE mark, and it was actually very complimentary, and it said, all nice things about me, and it said I was the face of WWE around the world, which was, listen, that's all hyperbole, and it's nice. It just wasn't true, and you should have heard the WWE fan. Man, that Wikipedia page was up for about a year, and I don't know how it was because every day there'd be 10 posts saying, he's a jerk, and he was mean to me, and he's not the face of WWE, and why would WWE want a face like that anyway? So it was pretty funny. Listen, I was part of the big team. I'm not sure people know me. I'm not sure people know me because I was good at what I did. I was bad at what I did. I was stern with people. I was mean to people. I was rude to people. Or I was the guy from Super Troopers. Or if I was actually, like a real solid, guy that was part of a bigger team and well-respected. I have no idea. And guess what? After all these years, I kind of don't give a shit anymore. At one time, I kind of gave a shit about what people thought about me. But now my thing in life is what you think about me is none of my business, And what Stephanie and Paul and Booker and Big Show and Cena and people like that, what they think of me is none of my business. All I know is I was there. I was dedicated. I worked my ass off. I would have walked. I've said this before. I would have walked to the end of the earth on broken glass for WWE. I was a loyal guy. And at the end, I got nothing. But guess what? That says more about them than it does about me. I got nothing. I got no respect. I didn't even get a phone call. But I attribute that to the bigger picture of that being professional wrestling than a shot against Jimmy Noonan, the Supreme Emperor of all things security in WWE.
But sir, we apologize that you didn't get anything for your hard work. They want to mention that.
It's okay, guys. It's okay.
Now we're getting feedback from fans about your statement, and there are some fans that are now tweeting us and messaging me that's saying that they feel that with all of these recent fan run-ins at these WWE shows, it's Triple H's fault. What is your response to that?
Well, I'm not sure what they're talking about. It's Triple H's fault. What's the context of that? That Paul made the Shield and he made them so big and bad that people want to react to them?
As they're saying, it's Triple H's fault because of all of these fan run-ins. They feel Triple H should have a, since air quote, I don't know why they're blaming Triple H. We're saying since Triple H is kind of one of the head figures of WWE, and since he's taken over some things there, it's his fault that these fans are doing run-ins. That's I guess that's what I'm getting.
Okay.
Since he helps run the show.
Listen, let me tell you about Paul. And I'm way past the ass kissing part of my life. But Paul is, you talk about the face of wrestling for the last 20 years. You talk about a guy who's been a multiple-time champion. You talk about a guy who went from being a guy who couldn't get a spot as Terror Rising, and then that thing where he was Lord Helms or whatever the hell he was, to being the top guy in WWE. He did it being a gentleman. He did it being a guy who showed up for every show. He worked hurt. He's a thinker. He's a creator. He is a Paul. WWE, WWF, and pro wrestling, when it's all said and done, is gonna owe Triple H, Paul Levesque, a great deal of honor and respect, because he brought, no matter what you say, no matter how you twist it, what he did as a wrestler and the attention he brought, and he drew a lot of money. There are people who have this stupid argument out there that Triple H never drew a dime. Well, guess what? Not while I was there, pal. Triple H drew a lot of money. That pay-per-view where he put over Dave Bautista at WrestleMania in Los Angeles is still one of the top 5 in history. And that was a great bout. That was a great storyline. The world of wrestling is going to owe Paul Levesque a great a deal for what he's done for wrestling. Is it his fault now? Of course it's not his fault. Should he maybe him and Stephanie be addressing it a little more? Yes, I think so. But how it's being done, is up to Paul. But I assure you, if Paul is involved, then there's a bigger plan. That's how much I think of him. Was he particularly wonderful to me? No, but he was a solid guy who was respectful to me, and he was the top guy, one of the top guys in the biz, and that guy gave me more respect than anybody. And he didn't have to do it, He didn't have to do it. The people that I really busted my ass for, the females, the Litas, and the Trishes, and no, I'm not saying anything bad about Trish. Trish is a great lady. But the undercarders, some of them owed me more respect than they gave me. Triple H didn't have to give me shit. He gave me a tremendous amount of respect. So if Paul's involved in some way, it will be taken care of. And if Paul ever wants to talk about it, he should probably give me a call, because I know the deal, and I know what's going on, and I know how to shut this thing down real fast. So he's welcome to call me. Will he? No, because Paul would look at it like he's going backwards, and why would he want some 57-year-old fat old guy, helping with his security? I don't think Paul's that stupid. He's not at all. He's a really smart guy. But as you can hear, I have the greatest amount of respect for that guy, and I always will.
Well, I'm glad you set the record straight on Paul at Triple H. Younger fans listening, Paul is Triple H's real name. I know kayfabe is dead, so a lot of people refer to wrestlers now as their real names. Why do you think Jimmy Paul and Triple H get such of a bad rap? A lot of people, we've interviewed and worked with guys that's worked with Paul, some guys that's close to Paul and Triple H as well, and we've Well, for us, we mostly heard good things. He's a gentleman. He deserves a spot. But then, of course, you have some fans of Mark's, even some other people in the business that feel Triple H only got where he's at now because he married Stephanie McMahon and became a McMahon. So I'm pretty sure you've heard those things. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Listen, Triple H was going to be a giant in the business anyway. Let me ask you a question. How many world titles has Triple H won? It's got to be way up in the double digits, right?
Was it Is it 13, Toph?
He's a 13-time champion. He could have won more. Story goes he requested not to out of respect for Flair.
He had that sewn up, man. He had that sewn up. He probably had 10 or 11 in the middle 2000s. So he could have put himself over as the number one guy of all time. But no, he ain't that kind of guy. He gave the respect to Ric Flair and guys who he looked up to. Paul, everybody knows, Paul's pulling the strings, and it should be. The guy knows the business. The guy in his own way, this big, this big soft-spoken bodybuilder, he could have, listen, the guy's a giant in the business, and people who are crapping on him are they're probably the Smarks who think they know better. So you didn't ask the question, but there's a question lurking there. Would Triple H be the same guy today if he didn't marry into the McMahon family? Yeah, somehow he probably would have found a way to be one of the top guys and to be the creative genius and to be a part of all the storylines. And he's done very well. I like the direction he's taken the business. I like what he's done with NXT. Nobody can argue with that success. Nobody can argue with the new success they're having with Rollins and Ambrose and Reigns and Brock and all this stuff. And not only, Flair won a lot of belts in the territories. Triple H won belts off Angle, off Taker, off Stone Cold, off Rocky, off Dave, off Cena. He wrestled the best of the 90s and the 2000s and won a lot. Why? Because the company wanted him to be at the very, very top before he married Stephanie. You get it? It was going to happen anyway, man. Maybe not to exactly the extent he is, the monster in the business he is now, the monster position he's in, but, it would have happened anyway. The guy's already a giant in the business. And for me, one of my favorite guys to watch wrestling night in and night out, and nobody saw as much wrestling as me and Jimmy Tillis did all those years. So you're coming from somebody who knows a little about the business, saying he's the top of the line, he's the real deal.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Hey, by the way, are we doing this right? You guys asked me one little question, and I talked for a half hour.
You're doing it right. That's how you do it.
Do you want that, or do you want me to shut the hell up and you guys ask intelligent questions and me go yes and no?
Nah, you're doing it right. That's how we do it here. You're doing it right.
Anyway, I got another question.
Yeah, go ahead, Toph.
Yeah, so here's another question I got. So another thing that's always just been kind of going on for years on, different internet forums and stuff like that. Once again, wrestling fans, we don't really know what's going on. We can just look at shows and analyze. But one of the biggest myths in wrestling is that when wrestling companies or sports entertainment companies, when they go to different cities, is that they label the cities as, Mark cities and Smark cities, meaning that some cities might be a little bit more livelier than others. Some cities, you might have a chance of having more crazy stuff happening, like fan run-ins and stuff. And so my question is, I'm not sure if you're aware how much you watch the product, but those Shield guys, like Roman Reigns in particular, when he does his entrance, he walks through the crowd to the ring. And what I've noticed is that in some cities when Roman Reigns makes his entrance, he's just walking by himself. You can clearly see there's no one behind him. he's giving fans the fist pump, and then he goes in the ring. And then in other cities, when he's walking, you have security kind of telling him, making sure that there's nothing happening. So why is it like in certain cities he can have like security telling him, but then in other cities it's like all is well? So is it because certain cities, like, do they think, like, for instance, if Roman Reigns was to do that in, say, New York, compared to, say, a random city in, say, Iowa, the state, is it true that, when you guys are in security, is there, like, a particular label of, like, do they tell you that certain cities be more on guard, or is it just kind of more of a be on guard every city regardless?
Possibly a little more on guard in some cities, and depending on what's going on in the ring that night and what's going to be said to incite the crowd. However, trust me that run-in, and I mean, okay, it's a walk-in for Roman Reigns. It's Roman Reigns' entrance. But whether it's Brock, through all those years he did his run-ins, or Sandman during, same thing, Sandman making all his run-ins, or walk-ins, or Reigns, there has been a meeting about that entrance. There's security in the VOM, the entranceway around the vomitorium. Okay, so the VOM, there's security there. There's security outside there. And by the time the camera hits him in his entrance, trust me, that entrance has been prepared. People have been notified, and there is, in fact, security in place. Now, WWE, of course, needs to create this persona that he's invulnerable, that he's impenetrable, that nobody can get to him. And that's what they do so well, and that's what they've done for years. But trust me, during that entrance, if I was there, I would not be on camera, but I would be within 5 feet of him. And I'd probably be whispering into him, or I'd probably say, go this way. Or so Jimmy Kelly or Dennis or Muriel or any of those people, plus a building guy or 2 or 3, have prepared that path. Now, that being said, you want to stay off camera because it's Roman Reigns, he's bigger than life. That being said, there are some places where you've got to pick up security. Canada, from 1 inch of Canada to the other, from the water in Halifax to the water in Victoria, British Columbia, you got to have security ready because those fans are crazy. They will do anything to get to the guys. That's not a put down. They're passionate, wonderful fans, but some of them like to do some really stupid shit. So you got to keep an eye on them closer in those cities. You also know when you go to a city like St. Louis, a purist, old school, unbelievably positive wrestling city, that chances are nothing's going to happen that night, so you can let the reins loose a little bit, so to speak. But there is security nearby. They are ready to pounce if they need to. And if I found out they were not, I would raise holy hell if I were the lawyers or any part of the risk relations, risk assessment team at WWE, finding out that my multi-million-dollar superstar is not being protected properly. I would raise holy hell. But they are nearby. Are there some cities you got to keep an eye on? Sure, especially when it's a storyline. Michael Hayes used to come to me on a regular basis because he was kind of like the lead agent at the time. And he would come to me and say, all right, Jimmy, what's going to happen tonight is Big Show's going to go to the top rope with Brock on his shoulders. He's gonna do a power bomb or whatever the hell you call that move off the top rope with Brock on his shoulder. The ring's gonna explode and break. He said at that point there's gonna be a chance for fans to hit the ring. I need you to really be on it. And I'd say, yes, sir, I'll take care of it. And then Vince or Kevin would come to me later on and say the same thing, and we were on it. Same thing with the night. The 5th anniversary of 9/11, we were in New York City. The 5th anniversary of 9/11, and we got a team called the Canadians or something like that, or the North Border guys or some shit. And they're going to come into the ring, and they're going to set the American flag on fire on the 5th anniversary of 9/11 in New York City, right? So we were like uptight, like you wouldn't believe, all day, thinking fans were going to hit the ring. But guess what? When you're ready for them, they're not going to hit the ring. When you're not ready for them is when they're going to hit the ring. They're going to hit the ring at the least, at the time, the least expected time. That's when they're going to hit the ring. And you always got to be ready.
That's crazy. Did that really happen?
You mean the 9/11 thing?
Yeah, was that like a house show?
No, it was a Raw. It was a Raw from Madison Square Garden on 9/11. Now, I don't remember what happened with the storyline. I think somebody at the last minute came to their senses and said, "Don't light the American flag on fire," but they still did something crazy, that night. And I called the top guy in the office at Stanford. I said, "Do you know what they're doing tonight?" And he said, "I won't even say his name. Everybody knows his name by now. I'm not even going to say his name. He ain't worth the time to say the words." But he was the top lawyer. Forget it. Who cares? But anyway, I called him, and he said, "Well, what's the big deal?" I go, "What do you mean, what's the big deal? I'm a New Yorker, man. It's fucking the 5th anniversary of 9/11. Are you out of your fucking mind?" But I can't say that to Vince. Vince will look at me like I got, 3 heads. He did most of the time anyway. But, you just got to take one for the team in that respect. You just got to do your job. You just got to shut the fuck up and do your job. So they did a different storyline that night, but it was pretty close to that. I know something crazy went down, but nobody hit the ring because it's New York, Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Well, we're saying all that. Everyone talks about how big MSG is, Madison Square Garden. It's the mecca of the WWE. How's the security in New York? I know if I'm right, I know you live in New York. I know you're a New Yorker. How's the security in New York and Madison Square Garden?
You don't. I would be burning too many bridges to tell you how security at Madison Square Garden is. I can't.
Okay.
I can't do
that
it.
answers enough.
I can't do it. I think that's given an answer. Those guys.
Yeah, I've been told that Madison Square Garden is like holy ground, so like it's like on lock there.
Yeah, they're union guys, and they don't have to do anything, and they pretty much don't. Don't get me wrong, I had a good relationship with all of them, but I pretty much had to do everything myself at Madison Square Garden. Nobody wanted to listen to the WWE security guy at the staff meeting. Same with the Staples Center in L.A. I mean, they have it down to a science there, and they do a nice job. But here comes the here comes the big bad WWE security guy with his security briefing, and we got to listen to this guy. They didn't even listen to half the crap I said. In these smaller, really purist wrestling cities, they took it pretty seriously, and they did a good job. But in these big cities, they don't want to hear from me. And it's not that they didn't have respect for me. It's just that they think they're above it, in some ways, So it was a little frustrating. Some cities were terrific. Some cities were terrible. I'll be honest with you. I never liked working a show at Madison Square Garden. It was probably one of the most stressful shows we did, whether it was a house show or a TV or a pay-per-view. It was so stressful. It was unbelievable, man. It was like always one of the worst days of my life. Getting the guys from the parking lot across the street through all the fans into the venue and afterwards, NYPD saved our ass a couple of times because basically the garden itself, they kind of weren't interested. But, it's tough. On the other hand, the Izod Center, except for one bad pay-per-view we had there, they always did a great job. Long Island, the Nassau Coliseum, they always did a great job for me,
Well, since we're on the topic of Madison Square Garden, do you have an opinion on why it's not going to that much?
Do we have to be on the subject of Madison Square Garden? All right, what was the question?
What's your opinion on why you think WWE doesn't go there anymore for shows like Raws, pay-per-views? Because it's been a while.
Well, okay. Let me think about this for a second. Okay. First of all, I don't know what to say. I think it's. I'll just say this. I think number one, it's rather expensive to do a show there. That's all I'll say. Number two, I think a place like the Barclays Center, right down the road. I have no idea because I was around before the Barclays Center, but I'd be willing to bet that they're willing to bend over backwards and do everything WWE asks for a proper price. Plus the fact that it's Midtown Manhattan, there's that nightmare of getting the talent into the arena. It's brutal. Listen, they did enough shows there. I mean, they did 3 or 4 shows a year there forever, and it was kind of like their home, so to speak. But and now that the Izod Center is closed, maybe there will be more shows at WWE. But I would think that the cost of doing a show there is almost prohibitive. That's my number one guess.
Wow. Yeah, that's the thought I had with, just the cost alone for having the show in Madison Square Garden, pretty much be expensive for that. Now, you mentioned Michael Hayes, of course, Michael P.S. Hayes. Funny thing is, off camera, when Raw was in Baltimore a few weeks ago and the fan had ran, what you didn't see on TV was, for some reason, Michael Hayes left the gorilla position and stood on top of the ramp. And he watched. And I've been to a lot of wrestling shows since '88, and I've never seen that before. I mean, I had to tell my correspondent and some fans, who's that? I said, that's Michael Hayes. He had the long blonde hair and he had like the white hat and like white pants, had a black fanny pack. And he stood there and watched. So the question to you is, why do you think Michael Hayes came out on the ramp to watch the fan get tackled? Was that a direct order from Vince to Triple H, or was that just Michael Hayes trying to check to see if everything was taken care of?
Well, everybody who works for WWE is an ex-wrestler, which automatically means on some level they're a tough guy. Let's face it, some are tougher than others. You hear about some guys, who are supposedly tough getting their asses handed to them in bars by other wrestlers. But, I'll stay away from that because, again, I'm not here to crap on anybody. But, you got Arn Anderson and you got Fit Finley and you got Dean Malenko and you got Michael Hayes and you got all guys who were road agents, and they're part of the show. They're not part of the show as talent, but they're part of the running of the show. They're on the creative team, Sergeant Slaughter, and they're all tough guys, and it's part of their business that when something goes wrong, for them to be in a position to quell that. When we did shows, let's say a house show in British Columbia, not Victoria, but in Vancouver, and we know there was always a chance of there being a fan incident in northern Canada or western Canada, you'd always have somebody like Fit Finley or Dean at ringside, not to do security, but to keep an eye on the wrestlers. I'm sure they had meetings. They were probably the agent for that match that night. There's different wrestlers who have different agents who are, coach them through stuff. I'm not trying to give anything away. I think this is common knowledge. I'm just explaining it, in a more matter-of-fact tone. But they would be there. So I think Michael Hayes or somebody in charge was feeling that it was the proper place for Michael Hayes to be, and also keep an eye on security and make sure security's doing their job.
Okay, all right. Thank you for summing that up. Because I thought it was funny to see Michael Hayes. Wow, Michael Hayes is on the ramp. He just stood and watched it, and once the fan got taken away, he just went on back in the back. And, of course, that wasn't on TV at all.
Are you saying there was an incident in Baltimore the other night? Which incident was in Baltimore? I don't even know. This is
Monday Night Raw. What was it? About 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was
when Seth Rollins was walking down and that kid joined him on the walk down.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that kid, listen. There's security behind the stage, the huge stage. There's security on the side. There's security on the long fence there's a big area there where a fan could come through. And if security's done the job properly, they have house security there. Sometimes there's anywhere between 100 and 250 house securities from the front doors all the way to backstage, protecting the backstage area. WWE can't do that. WWE can't take 15, 20, 30 guys on the road with them to run security in these venues. So they have one or two guys, and those buildings are given security riders as to what's expected from the moment we get there that day to do that show, and those guys, are put in position for a particular reason. Some local security guy let that guy pass them because he thought he was a part of the show, or didn't care, and then that kid ended up on the ramp with Rollins, and it just looks bad. Do I think Rollins was in danger that night? No, but you never know.
It is true. Of
course it's true. Of course it's true. I said it.
I think this stuff is planned, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Planned?
You think some of the run-ins are planned?
No, I think some fans are, like, just how security, just like how you guys prepare beforehand and are told what to do. I think that a lot of fans have been getting together, perhaps on online forums, and have been planning this out. These run-ins have been very consistent with these Shield members, with the person throwing the briefcase at Reigns at the house show. Then there's the report of the fan that almost stabbed Ambrose at the SmackDown taping. Then there's the guy that ran down the ramp with Rollins. And then at the most recent pay-per-view, we had the guy running again. This is just, all this has been going on like the past month and a half. I think that fans are planning this. I don't know. I mean, doesn't it seem a little weird? And it's consistent, too, because it's only with the Shield members and no one else.
Yeah, but, okay, so let's answer a couple of questions here. Do I think it's planned? Do I think there's probably online forums? Do I think there's groups of local wrestlers and local smarks who are doing this? Yeah, I probably do. However, everybody keeps saying the same thing. Well, it's happening during the Shield. Well, who's in the main event every night? Who's in the main event every night, guys?
It's Seth Rollins, pretty much. If it's not seen, it's Seth Rollins.
The Shield guys are in the main event every night. Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah, usually. Okay. Yeah, some variation of the Shield.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to hit the fucking ring during a Divas match, or are you going to hit the ring during the Shield and try to get on TV? Do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think this is necessarily a Shield thing. I think it's fans maximizing the attention, and that they want to get on TV for their 15 seconds of fame. So it has nothing to do with the Shield. It has everything to do with the time the Shield is coming out, which is the main event. If I'm a Smark or I'm an asshole, when am I going to try and hit the ring? Am I going to try and hit the ring during a Cesaro match? Or a Big Show match, or am I going to hit the ring with Seth Rollins, Ambrose, and Roman Reigns? Duh, Yeah,
it definitely make more sense then. Of course, you want to do it the more exposure for the main event.
Yeah, and I'm not saying duh to the guy who answered the question in Georgia. I'm saying duh in general. It's actually a good question. But, the answer is, you're going to do it during the main event, unless you're drunk and stupid and you just want to hit it during any time, Because it was actually a good question.
Okay.
With that, too, now on the other end, being a director, what was really your job? Because being a director, you're in charge. What was your specific job duties of being a director of security that people may not necessarily know about? Tell us about some of the backstage antics. Have you ever had to be security for some of the boys? Have there been issues where some of the wrestlers may have gotten scuffled and you may have to, break them up as well?
Well, again, there's lots of answers here. The first answer is I need to say that there were two directors of security at WWE. We weren't called the heads of security. We were actually formally called the directors of security. And that was me and Jimmy Tiller, simply for the fact that in those days we were doing a house show on Monday Night SmackDown while they were doing live TV at Raw in another city. And then, so we needed one guy on SmackDown and one guy on Raw, and then we'd end up together at Tuesday Night SmackDown, the two security guys. So I got introduced by Chris Bell the other day. Chris Bell, who was a writer at WWE, and he made the movie Bigger, Faster, Stronger. I saw him with a group of friends the other day, and he introduced me as the WWE security guard. Now, this is not a shot against Chris. I just don't think he, maybe he didn't know or got the magnitude of, I was not the WWE security guard. I was much more than that. A security guard wears a light blue uniform, and he wears a funny hat, and he carries a fake badge. All right? I was definitely not the WWE security guard. I was the director of security for WWE along with Jimmy Tillis. Anybody who says I wasn't, they can kiss my big white ass. That was my title at WWE. All right, that's number one. Number two is we did everything, man. When Mark Yaton or John D'Amico, the producers of the show, couldn't be found, the building people always knew that they could find somebody involved with the show, me or Tillis, and they would come find us. Why? Because they knew we'd be with the talent either backstage or in the ring. So they always knew where to find us, and sometimes it was easier to find us than it was a producer. So we got involved in everything. We talked with Vince. We talked with Kevin Dunn. We talked with the road agents. We traveled with the security 24/7. Every flight the security was on, every flight the talent was on, I was on. Every venue the security was, every event that the talent was at, I was there. Every city in Europe the talent was at, I was there. Every appearance that the talent made, whether it was Brock, Cena, Triple H, Taker, Eddie, Chavo, Mysterio, I was there. I traveled with them. I ate with them. I worked with them. I worked out with them. Sometimes I tanned with them. I drove with them. Sometimes I drove with Trips. Sometimes I drove with Eddie. Sometimes I drive with Benoit. Sometimes I drive with Dave. Sometimes I drive alone. You're constantly with them. So you are the only guy, except the trainer, who's with them 24/7, but you're not talent. And it puts you in a very, very odd position in the company because you're one of the boys, but you're definitely not one of the boys. So, as I've said many times, you have to deftly navigate some very tricky waters in your life and in your practice and in your backstage relationships. It is very difficult. Few men on the planet Earth can do it and stay there for as long as me and Tillis stayed there. So, stories? I mean, there's a billion stories. We always had heat with the boys and son. I remember we were late one night in Anchorage, Alaska. We had a flight from, I think, Russia or some godforsaken place, and we were about 2 hours late for the show, and we get to Anchorage, Alaska. We hadn't been to Anchorage, Alaska in like 10 years. And those people were nuts. And I'm the first one out while Kendrick and Paul London are getting changed in the van. We pull up. They're still getting changed for the first first. We don't even have a chance to brief security. We run out to the ring. Some guy throws a Coke bottle at me, hits me in the side of the head. Immediately, I'm pissed, and I'm nuts. Ringside is crazy. It's mayhem. And then Brock comes out later after a pretty decent show. Brock comes out later with Heyman, and Brock was new. Brock was new to the company, and Brock got hit with a Coke bottle in the side of the head. And Brock ran after me. Brock was going to kill me because he blamed it on me. But I couldn't do a damn thing. I didn't even get a chance to brief security. It was a work in progress the whole show. So there were constantly times that I always tell the time about the night Booker, we were in some really backwards part of Germany, and the crowd is screaming the N-word at Booker. Screaming it in unison at him and Sharmell. N-word, N-word. And then out of the 400 section, the very top of the building, an egg comes flying out and misses Sharmell by inches. and Booker decided to cut a promo in front of 30,000 German fans on me. You know? I mean, it was a love-hate relationship, and some guys hate you, and some guys love you, and some guys respect you, and some guys don't. It's a horrible job.
What was the, if you can tell us some other stories, that's cool. What was some of the other tricky waters that you had to deal with the other Jimmy? We're going to call him Other Jimmy because we have you on the show now. What's some of the other challenges of being there as the director of security with the boys?
Well, I mean, again, to get into specific stories, you'd probably have to read the book. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there is a book or there isn't a book, but
I was about to ask you, is there a book?
We don't want to talk about that, but
okay.
but you're dealing with people. So if you're dealing with 30 wrestlers and 10 female wrestlers, and then all the development people and all the people they bring in, and then the divas and the diva search ladies, and then people they're bringing in for tryouts, and you got to do that on Raw, and then you got to do it the next night at SmackDown. You're going to run into a lot of situations. You're going to run into a lot of personalities. You're going to run into a lot of things that the average guy doesn't. And you could read between the lines there, Let's put it this way. There are some guys who are married and some guys who are married and have girlfriends. And you got to definitely navigate all these situations because it's your job to keep some people away from other people. And sometimes you got to figure it out yourself. Sometimes you got to be told by the agents. Sometimes the talent will grab you and say, listen, I got a little situation going on today. I need your help. And sometimes you just got to grab the bull by the horns and decide this is how this situation is going to go down. That happened on a daily basis for 7-8 years that I was there. I say 10 years sometimes because I was at WWF New York too. But being out on the road was 6 and then a year and a half at WWF New York. But it doesn't matter the time. It was the time, from 2000 to 2007 was the time when it went from the Attitude Era to the New Era, and there was a rejuvenation in the business because of Brock and Cena and Orton and Dave and Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas and Risco Constantino and guys they brought up, and Ray and Eddie and Benoit, you know what I mean? So it was a new time, and there was a lot of pressure on us. But sometimes, navigating these questionable waters, sometimes you just have to take the bull by the horn so yourself. And guess what? Sometimes you made mistakes, too, because I'm a human being, and I'm not perfect, But I had to figure this was a work in process. I had to figure this out a lot by myself. And my mentor and friend, Jimmy Tillis, who was one of the main reasons I came on at WWE, he was there before me. He helped me with a lot of this stuff because he had been doing it a year and a half, 2 years before I came on. And then it was just down to me and Jimmy. There was a whole load of Jimmys at one point, but then it just came down to me and Tillis. And and it's brutal, man. It's brutal. People don't even know. Stephanie has no idea what I did there. Triple H has no idea all the hoops I had to jump through there. And Vince, anybody. And guess what? At the end of the day, they wouldn't care. All they wanted me to do was be a solid employee who showed up on time and did a good job, and I did my best.
How was Vince? And I'm getting text now. Fans want to know, you're in the actions with Vince, what kind of man Vince McMahon is, and your dealings with him. Not bury him this year, talk about your personal relationship or your business relationship with Vince.
Anybody who knows me would know I would never burn Vince. I've never said a bad word about Vince McMahon. I think one time I said he's going to hell, but that doesn't mean he did anything bad to me. And maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I hope that isn't the heading out of context. Jimmy Noonan says Vince McMahon is going to hell, because that's totally wrong. I may have said that flippantly at one point about Vince and his dealings in life. Vince, you will never ever hear me say a bad thing about Vince or Shane or Mrs. McMahon. They treated me very well. Vince, sometimes wouldn't say hello to me for days, and then one day would come in and say, "How you doing, Jimmy Noonan?" And I'd say, "Hey, Vince, what's up?" He'd say, "Having a damn good day in New York City," and that would be it. I saw the world on Vince McMahon's dime, and I did it in first class. So you are never, ever going to hear me say anything bad about him. There's no reason to. Steph, same way. Paul, the same way. Mrs., the same way. Shane, the same way. They treated me, like a respected employee, and Mrs. McMahon treated me like a part of the family sometimes.
It's always good to be treated like the family.
Yeah, it doesn't suck, man. And I was on their side. There's no reason they shouldn't be. I had their best interests always in the forefront. Number one, take care of the executives. Number two, take care of the talent. Number three, take care of the intellectual property. Number four, take care of the venue and the fans.
Yeah, we're getting some more fan questions here. Mr. Jimmy, this is Sean. I'm not sure, don't get an actual location, but he wants to know, who are some of your favorite wrestlers to work with or do security with?
I loved Eddie. I loved Eddie Guerrero. Dave, I still consider one of my brothers. Kurt Angle, he was always a gem to me. Edge was always very fair to me, good solid guy, always said hello. Ray was a good guy most of the time when he wasn't being influenced by some of the other jerks. In the beginning, my first 6 years at WWE, I got along very well with Mark Calloway. We had no problems. We always talked. At the end, and I don't want to talk about it, I'll just say that him and Booker threw me under the bus over something that shouldn't have been. But so I have some ill feelings towards him, but I think that's just a situation that Calloway got caught up in, The Undertaker. Glenn Jacobs was always fair with me. Booker, I'd rather not talk about. Cena, we never cared for each other. I don't think he was particularly respectful, and he's probably got his reasons for that. Most of the divas I got along pretty well with. Listen, in these situations, in these big companies, security is treated like a joke. Security is treated like an afterthought. Security, they're looking for somebody to pick on somebody, and we have a saying in the security business that shit runs downhill, and it stops at security. So, you can only imagine sometimes, the personalities and the people that we had to deal with. I never got along with Lita, although I did get along with the Hardys. Trish was solid. Tori was solid. Keebler was solid. Molly Holly never said a word to me. Lita never said a word to me. I'm not saying Holly's a bad lady. Victoria was cool, and most of the diva ladies who came in after that, Ashley Massaro and Christy Hemme, they were all really, really cool. I talk to Ashley, once in a while on Facebook, and she's a Northeast girl, and I'm a Northeast guy, and she's just a cool chick. Melina, I love Melina. She's a good girl.
She's a good person.
Some guys treated you like a dick, and some guys treated you like a brother. But I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's the same as being the head of security for Metallica or Bruce Springsteen or the New York Giants. They're looking for somebody to pick on sometime, and you're a prime guy because you're not one of the boys, but you're traveling with the boys. So and I've got my own personality, and I've got my own problems in life, and I got my own situations, and sometimes you bring a lot of this on yourself. Again, I'm a flawed human being. I'm a flawed child of God. But again, I was always there for the boys, and I was always there. I was always there to do my job.
Always. We all have flaws. I mean, no one here living doesn't have flaws. But I know you did your work very well. Another question to you that I want to know is, how did you adjust to travel? Of course, it's been said publicly that with Brock, one of the things Brock never was a fan of was the demanding travel. We've interviewed a lot of guys that worked in WWE beforehand. Not gonna mention names that are known. That said sometimes the travel would get to him at times, and that's the one thing that, as he got to the end of that career, he didn't really miss. How did you adjust to the travel schedule? Talk to us about that as far as traveling in your day, going from town to town, city to city, country to country.
Nobody, no matter how much you're right about it, or no matter how much you can explain it, nobody could actually tell you the true story of how travel works. It's so unbelievable that it's just that. It's unbelievable. It's nobody can do justice to tell you how rough it was, how complicated it was, how grueling it was, how sometimes how unfair it was. I mean, so I live in the Northeast, and I got a show. I do 3 house shows and then a pay-per-view and then 2 TVs, right? So I fly in on Friday night to Stockdale, California, and I do a house show. And then I got to drive 300 miles to Fresno to do a house show. And then I got to drive the next night 175 miles to I don't know, Bakersfield to do a house show. Then I got to drive to San Diego, another 300 miles to do pay-per-view, and then I got to drive back to Los Angeles to do Monday Night Raw, and then I got to take a flight or drive to San Francisco to do SmackDown. I mean, it's brutal. Brock was many guys, like many guys hated it. Brock accepted it for a while, but I'm sure it's one of the reasons he left the first time, and one of the reasons he's got the special schedule now, because he's Brock Lesnar and he's earned it. But Brock, there were mornings, because what I would do, it wasn't told to me, but what me and Tilla sometimes would do is we would travel more with the world champion. So if the world champion was on a particular flight, I'd be with him. If it was Brock or Taker or Angle, I'd make sure I was on that flight. I'd have WWE book me that flight, and I travel with him. But Brock was a little rough sometimes because, we'd be going to the airport at 4:45, and we'd be dropping off our rental car, and Brock, we have to go to the airport and sit for an hour and a half, check in and then sit, and all the fans would come over, and Brock would say to me, he'd punch me in the arm as we were taking the shuttle bus from the Hertz place to the airport, and he would say, "Noonan, if one fan comes up to me and asks for an autograph today, I'm going to punch you in the face." And he was only half kidding. You know what I mean? It's like there was a subtle threat there, make sure these people don't bother me. And I had to take that seriously. Now, would fans come up to him and ask him for an autograph? Yeah, but most of the time they'd say, "Guys, it's 5:45 a.m., we just had a show last night. My guy's pretty beat up. Do me a favor, leave him alone." Or guys, just, do me a favor. My guy's over in the corner. He's taking a nap. Don't snap pictures. Be nice. Be a gentleman. Be cool. You don't have to. Take pictures of him kissing his girlfriend. You don't have to take pictures of him eating a slice of pizza or an egg McMuffin. You don't have to take pictures of him picking his nose. You don't, give the guy a break. He's a human being and he works his ass off. Could you please leave him alone? So these were the things that happened on the road. Again, I could write a book just about the travel and it wouldn't do justice to how grueling and unbelievable it is. Now, how would Vince McMahon answer that? Vince McMahon would say, "You pussy," you pussy, because that's what you accept and that's what you take on in the world of wrestling, in the world of professional wrestling, in the world of WWE. And he did it for years, and he did it, and he still does it. And he would probably say, "You pussy talking about this shit, you pussy," But the reality is it's kind of interesting, too, and people just don't get it, that how unbelievable it is. So, that's why I'm here talking about it. But if Vince would be smiling right now, looking at me across the room going, "What up, pussy?" Talking about the travel schedule. Boo, poor me.
Go ahead, Toph. Sorry, they were trying to give difficulty.
Anybody there? Or you just want me to keep talking shit?
Now you good. You got a ton of
Yeah, what's up?
Toph, you there? Now I was going to pass over to you for questions.
Oh, I pretty much asked him everything. I mean, I don't have anything left. I guess the only other question left to ask would be, would you want to consider working there again, or you just want to move on to other projects in your life?
I'm being true to Jimmy Noonan. I'm being true to my life, and I have decided that I need to step away from the security business, not because I'm not still excellent at it. I travel all over the world with high net worth individuals, billionaires, and I travel on their yachts and I travel on their planes, and I am still youthful and I'm still really good at what I do, and for the most part nobody fucks with me. But I have to be true to my calling, and I believe my calling has always been that I'm an actor. And I hate to say that because it almost sounds tacky, but anybody who's seen my resume and seen me work knows I'm an actor, and that's why I'm in Hollywood now. I have refused jobs recently and turned down jobs for a lot of money to pursue my true calling, so I'm out here. That being said, if Triple H ever came to me in a respectful manner, or Stephanie ever came to me in such a way, and she was being, the wonderful, beautiful, smart, sexy, and business-like woman that Stephanie is, and she came to me and said, "Jimmy, we looked at the bigger picture, and for the most part, there were no problems when you were here. I'd like you to, maybe sit in on a few meetings. I'd like you to maybe come on as an advisor." I would probably entertain that conversation only because I have history there. I don't feel like I feel a little disrespected by the whole business. I feel like I did enough work and enough quality work to be a respected ex-employee, but I don't feel that way most of the time. But if they wanted to come at me from a position of respect and how I could add to the safety of their intellectual property and their wrestlers and the WWE team and the WWE universe in general, that's a conversation that I would entertain. It would cost them a few dollars, but I'm sure they could handle it. But also, they have to protect themselves, and then they made a conscious decision to be rid of me and Jimmy Tillis, and in some way have to respect the team they have put in place. But I think if they were smart, they would probably bring me or Jimmy Tillis back into the fray as an advisor or a supervisor to make sure that this stuff will never, ever happen again, or will happen in such a way that people will be notified that there will be swift judgment against them if they ever decide to interrupt a WWE show again. Swift and harsh. And people need to understand that. And it's not done. It's not done. It could be done, but people hitting the ring is not done. And so I think the answer is yes, but it would have to be on my terms.
Well, yeah, it got to be on your terms. Like you said, you got to look out for Jimmy Noonan, so got to look out for yourself, of course. Definitely so.
There you go, baby. Looking
now
out for number one, baby.
Now
hey, how long we been doing this?
About an hour and a half, 90 minutes.
I've been on the radio for an hour and a half?
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Oh, my God, I apologize to your fans.
No apologies.
Oh, my God,
you doing great.
You had to listen to my bullshit for an hour and a half. I apologize to each and every one of you, but at least I hope I was entertaining.
Oh, yeah, you have been. Now, the era you was in, of course, the Attitude Era, and then the era afterwards is referred to as the Ruthless Aggression era, where you had, the young Brock, and you had Angle and Eddie and Benoit and all these Edge and Ray. How do you feel looking back on your time there to see that a lot of these guys are now the big stars? Brock is still one of the biggest stars. You was there watching Cena come in, watching Batista, watching the young Randy Orton, a lot of the what we call now main guys and one of the top guys in WWE. You was there when they were rookies. So how do you feel about watching that growth?
Well, let's examine this even a little more. I was there for Eddie's first belt. I was there for Benoit's first belt. I was there for Edge's first belt. I was there for Cena's first belt. I was there for Dave's first belt. I was there for Brock's first belt. I was there for Orton's first belt. I was there, you know what I mean? I was there at quite a time. I wasn't there when Jim Dotson had his 2, 3, 4 year reign during the Attitude Era, but I was there for some pretty crazy shit. Ray got his first belt. I was there for some pretty crazy stuff. I'm proud of those guys. That sounds silly. Like, who am I as the the security guard from WWE? Saying I'm proud of them, but I really am proud of them. I'm proud of the time I was there. I'm proud of the work they did. I'm proud of the work we did together. I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm proud of the work that Jimmy Tillis did. I'm proud of a lot of stuff. We saw the company through some really, great times and financial highs, and I was a part of it. Nobody can take that away from me. So, to seeing that, I think if you look at 16 years later, 15 years later, that John Cena is still a top guy, and Rocky's still coming back, and Eddie and Benoit are now gone, and living with all the WWE legends in heaven. And Ray's gone, and I was there through a lot of high times, and listen, you do the math, you do the math. It was crazy and it was wonderful, and in some ways I want to shut the door on it, but in other ways it's so ingrained, in my life. It's very, very difficult sometimes to work 300 days a year. I'm not saying 300 shows, but I worked 300 days a year with all the travel and for so long, and not be a part of your the fabric, that the cellular DNA that makes you who you are. It's part of me. I don't know if that's good or bad most of the time, but it's a part of who I am. And I don't know if that answers your question. But I will say, if it's been an hour and a half, if it's okay with you guys, I think, I think we've answered a lot of questions. I think we've talked about a lot of people. I think you got a pretty good, you and your listeners have gotten a pretty good inkling of who I am and what I am.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And maybe in some ways this is the most really fleshed out interview I've ever done. You guys made me comfortable, and I don't feel like I crossed any boundaries, and I don't feel like I hurt anybody, but still gave valuable information and valuable insight to the world that is professional wrestling. So if you guys don't mind, I don't know if you got anything else. The other guy said he's pretty much out of all his questions. I think I'd like to wrap it up and say I think I'm pretty much done now. I think I've pretty much exhausted my WWE time on Earth, and have talked enough about it. And I think anytime in the future, that any radio show calls me and asks me to do an interview, I'm pretty much going to say no. I think, between this week and the guys, the breach of security and my time at WWE and the questions I've answered. I think it's all been said, and I think I'm officially done, and I think I'm officially retiring from the radio circuit. I don't know anything more I could say. So to you, Evan, and the guy in Georgia, and all the fans of your radio show and the WWE universe, I'd pretty much like to say goodbye to you. And good luck, man.
Yes, thank you for that too. Thank you. Did you
and I'm
want to
officially
play?
I'm officially gonna say goodbye right now. Goodbye, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.